Today we're going to be working with solving linear equations. So these are just like the equations we would have dealt with in middle school. Solving those, just making sure that we're using our order of operations as we go throughout. So we're going to solve the equation negative times the quantity x plus 4 equals 4. And the first thing we're going to notice here is that we need to get rid of those parentheses, and there's a -1 in front of those parentheses. When there's a number out front, we're going to take that and distribute it in. So -1 times x is negative x. -1 times 4 is -4. And that still equals our 4. Next, we're going to keep working towards, remember our goal is to get the variable by itself. So that means that we're going to get that x by itself. So we're going to add 4. The opposite operation of subtracting 4 is to add 4 on both sides. Don't drop this negative. Okay, we have negative x equals 8. Here, the x is not completely isolated yet. It's not by itself. So we're going to take that. Remember, it's got a coefficient of -1. -1 is being multiplied by x. So we're going to do the opposite operation, or the inverse operation, and divide by -1. -1 divided by -1, those go away. And we have x equals 8 divided by -1 is -8. Now, remember, you can always check your answer by taking this and plugging it back into the original equation. Okay, you don't have to show your work for this, but you should be thinking about it, plugging it in, making sure that it's correct. Okay, so -8, let's see if we do this. If we plug that -8 in for x, we want to know, does that equal 4? So -8 plus 4 is -4. We still have that negative out front, so a -4 is a +4. Is that equal to this 4 over there? Yes, it is, so we know that x equals -8 is the correct answer. So remember, you can always take your answers and plug them back in to check to see if they're correct. All right, let's take a look at a slightly more complicated example. Here we have 0.6 times the quantity 10n minus 3 equals 1.5 times the quantity n plus 2 minus 0.3. So with this, we just have to decide what we want to do first. There's no set correct answer of what to do first. You might do something first and your neighbor might do something completely different. In the end, there is one correct answer though for what n should equal. So I see parentheses here on both sides, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, where I'm going to distribute this 0.6 in on the left-hand side. 0.6 times 10n is 6n. 0.6 times -3 is -1.8. On the other side of the equals sign, we're going to take that 1.5 and distribute it in. So 1.5 times n is 1.5n. 1.5 times 2 is 3. And then this 1.5 doesn't go to this minus 0.3, so we're just going to carry that along. Now that we're here, we can simplify, which means we're going to combine like terms on each side. So 6n minus 1.8, nothing to do there. We're going to leave it alone. On the right-hand side, we have 1.5n. That doesn't have anybody that's like terms with it to combine, to simplify. But 3 minus 0.7, we're going to make that be a positive 2.7. Okay, everything's simplified. There's no other like terms to combine on either side. So the next thing is to get our n's together. I always like to do the ones that has this, I'm going to move the smaller coefficient. Remember, coefficient is just the number in front of the variable. So 1.5 is smaller than 6. So I'm going to work on moving those over so that I can always stick with a positive coefficient if possible. So since it was a positive 1.5n, we're going to subtract it. 6 minus 1.5 would be 4.5n. We still have the minus 1.8, and that equals 2.7. Okay, our n we're trying to isolate. That means we need to get rid of this minus 1.8, which means we're going to add 1.8 to both sides. We're going to add 1.8 to both sides, so that means we're going to have 4.5n. Those are going to cross off with each other. I guess I could have crossed that off earlier. And 2.7 plus 1.8 is 4.5. Since 4.5 is being multiplied by n, the way to get rid of it is to divide by 4.5 on both sides. Those go away. 4.5 divided by 4.5 is 1. Remember, you can always take that answer, plug it back in. 1 does work when you plug it back in. So that is our answer. So that's dealing with some decimals along the way. The next type of question, we're going to deal with some fractions. Now, there are multiple ways to deal with fractions. In this particular example, I'm going to work on eliminating the fractions or clearing the fractions. From the beginning, we're going to also talk about in class lots of different ways for you to deal with fractions as you go. Okay, so we're going to clear the fractions today. All right, we're going to take 2/5 times the quantity 4x plus 3 plus 4 times the quantity 6x plus 1 equals 43. Now, to clear the fractions, we need to clear this 5 as the denominator. What that means is we want to multiply everything by 5 because that is the inverse operation of dividing by 5. Now, that doesn't mean we're literally multiplying every single thing. These parentheses protect those things there. So when we're multiplying each term by 5, that means that we're actually just going to multiply things that are on the outside of the parentheses by 5. So when we take 5 times 2/5, these 5s are going to go away because 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 1 times 2 is 2. That 4x plus 3 inside the parentheses is protected. So nothing's going to change about that. 5 times 4 is 20. And again, the 6x plus 1 is protected, so nothing changes. 43 times 5 is 215. So here's our new equation. What looked like a scary equation to begin with because it had fractions involved with it doesn't have to be. So we got rid of all of those fractions, and now we might have bigger numbers, but we are able to solve this equation. All right, next step. Distribute the 2 in. So 2 times 4x is 8x. 2 times 3 is 6. 20 times 6x is 120x. 20 times 1 is 20. And that still equals 215. Now we're going to work on simplifying things on the left-hand side. That means we're looking for things that are like terms with each other. Okay, this 8x and this 120x, those both have x's with them. So we're going to combine those and get 128x. This 6 and this 20, they don't have x's with them, they're just constants. We're going to combine those and get plus 26, and that equals 215. Okay, we got to get rid of this positive 26. The inverse operation of that is to subtract 26. So 128x is going to equal 189. Last step to get x by itself, we're going to divide by 128 on both sides. And then we're going to look to see if anything simplifies here. So there's no number that goes into 189 and 128. So we're going to leave it as 189 over 128. That's one way you can answer this question. You can also answer it as a decimal. And if you're answering it as a decimal, you're going to answer and round to 2 decimal places. Okay? So when we divide this, you would get 1.475, I think it is. And that means, though, that we're going to round that 7 up to an 8. So 2 decimal places. Either one of these would be acceptable answers. Okay, so I'm going to put or here. You could answer it as the fraction version. You could answer it as the decimal version. If it needs to be rounded, you're going to round to 2 decimal places. Okay? All right, let's put all of this into practice in a word problem. So we're going to look at one word problem here. Suppose you're helping to prepare a large meal. You can peel 2 carrots per minute. You need 60 peeled carrots. How long will it take you to finish if you have already peeled 18 carrots? Okay, so let's go through some steps here really quick. First step is going to be define a variable. Now, I don't really want the definition of a variable. I want us to be able to say x equals, or m equals, or y equals. Whatever variable you're choosing to use, typically people are going to use x, you're defining your variable. Okay? So then the second step is going to be to write an equation based on the words of the question. What the heck are we trying to solve? Okay, so write an equation. Third step is going to be to solve for, I'm going to put x there, could be whatever variable you're using. And then step number 4, when we're dealing with word problems, we're going to write a sentence. Write a sentence, okay, to answer that question. So, we're peeling carrots. We need 60 peeled carrots. We can peel them at 2 carrots per minute, and we have already peeled 18 carrots. So what's that equation going to look like? Well, we need a total of 60 peeled carrots. That's our total. So I'm going to put that on the right-hand side. Before we can even do that, what am I doing? We need to define a variable. All right, let's use x. It says, how long will it take you to finish if you've already peeled 18 carrots? Okay, so x is going to be, since it's asking how long, x is going to be the number of minutes. The number of minutes it's going to take us to finish this job. Okay, so our total is 60. That's going to go over here. We need 2 carrots per minute. That's how fast we can do this job. 2 carrots per minute. Well, if x is the number of minutes, and we can do 2 per minute, that means that we're going to take 2 and multiply it by x. We've already peeled 18 carrots. So if I take 2 times the number of minutes that I'm going to be working, that's how many carrots we're going to be peeling, I have to add to that the 18 that I already peeled. 2x plus 18 equals 60. Now, instead of adding this 18 here, you could have already subtracted that over here because we know that we've already peeled them, so we're going to take them away from our total of 60. Okay, we don't want to add them to 60 because we don't need to peel 78 carrots, we need to peel 60 total carrots. So now we have our equation, so now we're going to solve for x. Well, to isolate x, we're going to get x by itself there. We are going to subtract 18 on both sides. Now we have 2x equals 42. To get rid of that x, because we have 2 times x, we're going to divide by 2, and x is going to equal 20. Oh gosh, I can't even do my math today. 21. X equals 21. Last thing, write a sentence. What does that mean? It says, how long will it take you to finish? So what does x equal? X equals the number of minutes, so it will take 21 minutes. Now, you don't have to say those exact words. You could say it in a different way, but you somehow have to say that it would take 21 minutes in order to get those carrots peeled.